Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to our show. Welcome to Makeover Monday. Makeover Monday is a day. We give different names different days on Wisdom of the Sages. We do this 7 days a week. A lot of people are a little shocked that we do this every day, but we do. It's good to hear spiritual truth on a regular basis. That's how we learn it. And that's how we don't just learn it. It starts getting sort of woven into our psyche. It's imagine if you have somebody constantly on your shoulder, just like giving you some like interesting advice, but you're just like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Finally, something sticks after a while. If you hear it on a regular basis, that's why it's important for parents to, that's why it's important to have a stable family, be good parents, live dharmically, because you can instruct the children. And even if the children have that rebellious tendency, it stays with them for their lifetime, So anyway, by hearing spiritual truth on a regular basis, this is how we actually change our behaviors. This is how we change our thoughts. And you know what?
What?
If you hear them and you don't apply them, it takes longer. If you hear them and you don't apply them, it takes longer. But if you apply them a little, and this is the power of Makeover Monday. Makeover Monday is a chance for people to sort of pick themselves up wherever they are in their spirit. Sometimes we have these, New Year's resolutions that we don't live up to by the time January 14th rolls around. And we feel like, what's the point of this? Makeover Monday is a chance. Every Monday we check in with ourselves. Who am I? Who do I want to become this week? What did I do? What am I going to let go of? And what am I going to add to my life? And we make a tangible list and we read it to ourselves. If I feel like, look, a lot of people are going through these things where I'm giving up caffeine. It didn't serve me. I'm addicted to it. And I know it's not good. I know it helps me through the day, but I need to let it go. Or a lot of people have been struggling with social media. Sometimes if you're a parent, it's hard to tell a kid, hey, look, social media is too much. You're on your tablet all day. We're on our tablets all day. And I noticed myself, this week was a great weekend. We just said, you know what? Let Sunday be sacred. Let Saturday be sacred. Just put it down and to like detox from that. These are designed to be addictive. People are doing with food. Last week was Zakadasi. I had a great food one. I just decided, you know what? I've been a pig. I've been eating too much. I've just been overeating, eating randomly. So that last Monday was Ekadasi, I think, a special fast day on the Vedic calendar. And that sort of just kicked off a beautiful week for me. And now it's time for Monday to recheck in with myself. How did I do? Where did I fall short? What do I want to lift up? And you go through a period of detox. Whether it's food or coffee or social media, where even if you put your phone down, you're like, where is it? Who's got my phone? Does somebody have my phone? And it's that detox that it's sort of like, and plus if it was to speak of something like alcohol or drugs, prescription medication, there is a pain, like where am I in this world without my substance to fulfill that God-shaped hole? I'm putting it in the God-shaped hole. There's a God-shaped hole, and I'm putting social media in there. I'm putting coffee in there. I'm putting, movies in there. I'm putting Netflix in that God-shaped hole. And really, there's only God to put in. That's the only thing that'll fit and that'll give us what we want. Yet I'm desperately trying to put anything else in there except God. So there is a natural pain when you sort of like make that divorce from the thing you're so attached to that doesn't really satisfy you anyway. There's a little pain. And it's actually exactly where we are in the Bhagavatam today, Kaustubha. The pain of giving up the things we're attached to. And this is what our blind king, Dhritarashtra, is going through. You want to take us through a little cliff notes of where we're at, Prabhu?
Well,
Kaustubha is expert at seeing the big picture of everything.
Well, you know, like the order came down, I think the last time we got together, right? It was Friday.
Yeah.
I think Vidura, you know, he said what he had to say. His brother came, you know, Vidura came and spoke to his brother Dhritarashtra and laid out the situation. You know, you're wasting your final days away here. It's actually even embarrassing. You know, he said some harsh words, you know, like harsh, not, maybe harsh isn't the right word, but like, you know, blunt, hard to hear words, but coming from the very purest of intentions. And today we find out what Dhritarashtra does, how he accepts it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
I don't know. Because you can ask.
When's the last time you? No. Did you ever? No.
Do you want to?
My personal question is, so here is a great sage, Vidura. And Vidura comes in and he just says, and he sort of orders his brother. He's like, look at what you're doing with your life. Now's the time to just let go. Now, we accept that. I mean, one of my standards I follow on a regular basis is I try my best not to give unsolicited advice to people.
Okay.
And people come to a yoga class or a lecture I'm giving and they ask for advice, or sometimes I'll give a class of spiritual truths where they signed up for the class. He signed up for it. But I don't go out of my way to tell people what to do or tell them how they should improve their life unless generally they ask. I try not to give unsolicited advice. Of course, there's always, when it comes to kids, there's certain people in your care, and this is, but it can be, I find it causes more tension. Yet there's certain people, and I don't like to hear unsolicited advice from people unless I ask them, or I consider them a spiritual authority, or if I was to ask you, hey, Kaustubha, what do you think about this? Can you give me this? But I guess that's asking you. Actually, if you were to say, Raghu, here's some advice for you, I'd take it seriously. Okay. But generally, I don't like to hear unsolicited advice because oftentimes people, they're not a proper reflection of you. Usually they've got some issue with you and they're trying to tell you what you should be doing with your life. Now, if someone like a guru came, someone that we respect, and gave you advice and just dropped a bomb on you, like Vidura did, you would probably take it seriously. What do you do when other people give you advice? Do you hear them, or do you immediately just go, I don't accept unsolicited advice? Or do you think, yeah, maybe I should think about that? Some people don't even know you give you advice.
You're asking me personally.
Yeah. How do you deal with it?
I'll be honest, like one of my, if I were to, and I have searched my mind and searched my heart, and I know that one of my kind of psychological predispositions, people have different mindsets, different personality types. Yeah. But part of my makeup, is that I think I'm always right.
Are you? All the time.
Most of the time. but I think I'm always right. And I, at a certain point in my life, I took to heart the idea that I really have to guard against that. In the way that I speak, in the way that I relate to others, and hopefully develop the ability to hear good advice or to pick up on subtle indications that are there that I might otherwise very easily just bypass, that I have to take these as clues to how I'm meant to better myself. So I'm not a great person at taking advice. Like you said, if it's the right person, if it's someone that I have this, and that's why it's one reason why it's so important that we have those kind of people in our life. It's somebody that we really trust. We trust their wisdom. We trust their motive. That then okay, if it's coming from that person, I have to take this very seriously. And that's been really important in my life. But I don't feel I'm the best example of that, but I feel it is something that I'm always trying to improve on. that we need to be able to take advice even from, you know, if we're going to become that real spiritual seeker, then we have to try to find the truth everywhere. And, you know, we some weeks back, we spoke about Bilvamangala Thakur, who heard from a prostitute. And then in that conversation, I think we also heard about that politician, I forget his name, something Baba, who, you know, he was just walking down the street and a street sweeper just kind of said, hey, move on. Your time is passing, move on. You know what? That's a message that I needed to hear.
Right. They're taking a message from a person who's not necessarily spiritually qualified, but they actually speaking truth, or they're hearing a truth, even though that truth wasn't even intentional. Like move on. The sun is setting.
Yeah. And so you're mentioning that when it's the right person, then we stand a better chance. But we need to come to that point where even if it's not the right person, we're ready to consider whatever we hear. You know, I know there's in Ramayana, there's stories about Lord Ram, who's like, you know, he's just so impeccable, you know, but he used to disguise himself because he knows I'm the king. Nobody's going to really tell me the full truth. You know, I really need to know what the people, if I ask this person or that person, hey, how do the people feel about how I'm doing? They're gonna say, oh, you're doing great. You know, everybody loves you, you know, but he would go in disguise and wander around the marketplace and see what people, you know, try to hear what people are saying. To become so, you know, open for that self-reflection and, you know, to hear critique of oneself. It's because our ego is fragile that we're resistant to it. And that's just one of those, you know, doors that we have to open that may be a little scary. So I'm not claiming to be the best example, but you inspire me a lot with that kind of stuff, Raghu. I feel you're very open, and you know, it's just real important that if we want to make progress, we have to be willing to open those doors. Yeah. So, but I think the case with Dhritarashtra and Vidura is Vidura had built years of trust.
Sure.
Right? Years, you know, I think it's Stephen Covey that writes about, I think he calls it the spiritual bank account.
Yeah.
That, you know, and generally, like I said to you in the past, I'm kind of an orthodox guy. I don't depend too much on self-help books or these management
Emotional
guides.
bank account.
Emotional bank account.
Yeah.
Right. And but I think he had a lot of wisdom in some of the stuff that he wrote. And I think that emotional bank account one is real solid, you know. That how you treat a person, you know, each time it's like either an investment or a withdrawal from that emotional bank account. And I think, you know, if you behave in ways that call your trust, you know, to scrutiny, particularly, you know, or if you don't reciprocate, you know, I'm not explaining it very well, but the way that you treat and relate with people, it either builds or reduces the trust they have in you. And when the trust is very low, everything is misunderstood. Even if you had a good intention, people misunderstand it and with suspicion. But if you build that emotional bank account very high, then you can say things that would be difficult for someone to hear, and they're able to hear them because the trust is so high. So we need to work on our relationships with people so that we're building that spiritual bank account. And then we can help each other, you know. So friendship means we got to build that account really high. And then, like you're saying, and like you do, you know, we can even kind of get into that habit of like, maybe that could be a Makeover Monday thing for people, you know, like I'm going to ask people to tell me what I really need to do to improve, you know, something like that. I don't know.
That was good.
I hope that's
I
helpful.
appreciate that. It is
Thank
helpful.
you.
So we're in a sweet place in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I wouldn't mind just jumping in today.
Okay. Do you want to mention, maybe we just throw out there before we dive in, that we have Divya, who was I really enjoyed the show yesterday with Divya.
She was great. Oh yeah. I want to thank her too. I'm excited. She's coming Friday.
She's coming Friday at 2 p.m. for our Patreon members.
Great. If you want to join us and unlock Divya, the Divya treasure chest of deep Vedic, Ayurvedic knowledge, and she's going to, what's the title of the class, Prabhu?
Called The Fundamentals of Ayurvedic Cooking.
Ooh. So that will be at what time?
2 p.m. Friday afternoon, Eastern time.
Okay, so if you'd like to get in that, if you're not part of our Patreon, it's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Unlock special goodies. And this week also on our Wisdom of the Sages Patreon party, it is 3 yoga classes starting with Bobby Marchand on tomorrow, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Wednesday.
Bobby's great.
Yeah, Bobby's wonderful. We're doing the teacher training up here.
Such a close friend of ours. Such a
dear friend and very phenomenal teacher.
Yeah.
And she co-leads the training with us up here. She's been to Indy with me many times, and she's here this morning live. And also Kumi, who's one of the Californians.
Kumi.
She's a great teacher, has a studio, Veda Yoga, I can't remember, in Los Angeles, where I always teach, and great community there. And she listens. There's a whole gang of Californians that listen, and she will give class at 6 to 7 p.m.
Very sought after teacher as well.
Yeah, 6 p.m. tomorrow night. Also been to India with us many times. And then Thursday, Paramananda's back at 10 a.m. So we have 3 yoga classes this morning, and, welcome to the party. So I'm just putting that out there. Okay. So it's a big week, and let's dive in. We are on
Text 29, Canto 1, Chapter 13, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And
Narayanam.
Text 29.
Text 29. Let's start with our mantras, our invocations. Narayanam namatrit. Narayanam naraskritya naram shaiva narotamam. Devim sarasvatim vyasam tatojayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta priyeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Woohoo! First canto, chapter 13, text 29. Dhritarashtra quits home is the name of the chapter. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the scion of the family of Ajamidha, I don't know who that is. I'm assuming it's one of the ancestors. Yeah. Firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, pragya, broke at once the strong network of familial affections by his resolute determination. Thus, he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother, Vidura.
He took it to heart.
He took it to heart.
He took it to heart. Not only did he take it to heart, he took it to heart like right away.
Which is pretty amazing because he didn't have that much determination. The whole story of the Mahabharata is he had no determination. He was just like controlled by his son.
Yeah.
I'm going to dip into this purport, okay? There's some parts. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was tightly bound in a network of material affinities related to politics, economy, and family attachment. And he did everything in his power to achieve so-called success in his planned projects. Mm-hmm. But he was frustrated from the beginning to the end, and so far as his material activities were concerned. Sorry about that. So far as his material activities were concerned.
So he was a guy that was the king. He had so much power, so much influence, so much opulence, so much wealth. He had his plans, but he was frustrated from beginning to end.
They were always thwarted.
Yeah.
And yet, despite of his life of failure, he achieved the greatest of all success in self-realization by the forceful instructions of a pure devotee of the Lord, who is the typical emblem of a sadhu. The scriptures enjoin, therefore, that one should associate with sadhus only, rejecting all other kinds of association. And by doing so, one will have ample opportunity to hear the sadhus, who can cut to pieces the bonds of illusory affection in the material world. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion, because everything appears to be tangible, to be a tangible reality, but the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. That is really good.
Yeah.
A cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be a reality because it rains. And due to rains, so many temporary green things appear. But in the ultimate issue, everything disappears, namely the cloud, the rain, the green, the vegetation, all in due course. But the sky remains, and the varieties of the sky or luminaries also remain forever. Similarly, the absolute truth, which is compared to the sky, remains eternally, and the temporary cloud-like illusion comes and goes away. Foolish living beings are attracted by the temporary cloud, but the intelligent men are more concerned with the eternal sky, with all its variegatedness.
Nice
Wow.
stuff.
That was great stuff.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't know if I'm reading into it, but it seems like Prabhupada is subtly alluding to a Bhagavad Gita verse here. You know, he starts by saying, you know, it is a fact that the material world is a great illusion. And that's a big topic in Eastern thought, you know, that this world is an illusion. But how is it an illusion is the kind of thing that's like,
Yeah.
what does that really mean? You know, and then he gives an example or analogy to help understand it. He says it's like a cloud in the sky. He says a cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be reality. Like, okay, it's right there. I can see it. But it's there for a moment and then it's gone. And so this idea that that something that comes and goes is in a sense unreal is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. And a really important verse, 216. You know, nasate vidyate bhavo.
Na bhavo vidyate.
Yeah.
Na bhavo vidyate sataha.
Mm-hmm.
Idimat va. I don't know.
Uvir api driston tas. Tavanyos tattva-darshibi. What is a tattva-darshibi?
Tattva-darshibi. One who sees the truth.
One who sees the truth. So he says, nasato vidyate bhavo. That which is unreal has no endurance.
That's a great verse.
Right. Na bhavo vidyate sataha. And that which is real has no change. And then the seers of the truth, the tattva-darshibis, they've concluded this by studying the nature of both.
I want to be a tattva-darshibi when I grow up.
Me too. You know, so you know, I look at the things of this life that come and go, and I understand. I have to see them that way. Like, you know, you talked last week. It was a really interesting thing you shared about, you know, like packing up a box and you put your whole life in there, and then you move. You know, and then you move. You know, wherever you go, you see that whole part of my life is gone, just like a cloud. And there'll come a day where we kind of pack that box up for the last time. And that's where Dhritarashtra is. You know what? I've spent my life very engaged in things that come and go and come and go and come and go. And I have this time left, and I'm going to focus on what doesn't come and go. You know, I'm going to go within, I'm going to connect with God. That's going to be where my focus is. That which remains, what remains after everything comes and goes. And if we can establish in our life a connection to God within the heart, then all the things that are around us are going to go, but that'll still be there. You know, that'll still be there because and therefore it's real.
All right, let me ask you a big question, sir. Let me ask you a big question. Let me just cut you off, step on you, walk on your head for a second, and then just like turn you around and just say, hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
We both, whenever we hear verses like this, you and I are quick to say, that doesn't mean you should just walk away from your family. This isn't an excuse to be irresponsible. And in Bhakti, you can have a spiritual life and a family. It's one of the few yoga paths that really recommend that you can be in the world, but not of the world. That's our practice. Okay. Yet again, we hear And we hear people evolving like that. We hear about great saints like Bhakti-yogi Thakur, or people in family life that were like not just like on a spiritual path, but they were evolved beings with many children, important careers, etc. But there is a demographic of a spiritual population that when their calling is louder. When you hear the stories of Mirabai, the princess who gave up the throne, when you hear about Raghunath Das Goswami, who's my namesake, you know, who had everything. They're from billionaire families, and they just like walked away from everything to follow a spiritual path. People gave up. There's people who just walk away.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're one of those persons, or can all of a sudden situations change? You're like, you know what? Now's the time I have to cut it. When do you know? When do you know that that's not your time, or you're just like sick of it all? I'm sick of it all. I'm gonna get out of here. You know what I mean? When is it actually like, no, actually, this is a God calling that you have to leave now?
Well, you know, of course, that's a very individual question. It'll be different for different people. The only way that I could address that is by saying, how do you go about knowing? You know, what will be what's the method for determining the steps that you take in your life? And you know, that's where we really, you know, that's where we really, you know, it's really what a guru is all about. You know, like
Right.
that. You know, you have people in your life that understand that. You know, you're touching on a topic that's real important and fundamental when one gets serious about spiritual life, particularly from these Eastern traditions, is that how do I tune the level of renunciation in my life, right? How do I fine tune
Right.
that? Because the thought would be, and we had some questions about that this past weekend, you know, like, shouldn't I just leave everything behind? I shouldn't buy the hot tub. I shouldn't, you know, dress in any nice clothes. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. Why am I doing this job? Let me leave that. And if I'm real, if I'm serious, that's where this is all leading. But there's such a depth of understanding and wisdom within this culture and tradition, this bhakti culture and tradition, this shastric culture, Vedic culture and tradition, coming from the Bhagavad Gita, coming from the Bhagavatam, that recognizes how to progress step by step on the path. That that although it's a fact that in spiritual perfection it depends on nothing external, if you try to jump there too quick before you have that level of realization, you're likely to create such an unstable circumstance that you're unable to take make those step by step progressions, and your mind becomes disturbed. So like I would imagine if right now I did what Dhritarashtra does right here. If I said, you know what, Kaustubha, ultimately, you know, your connection to your wife is something that's going to come and go. It's unreal in that sense. You know, your connection to your apartment is just something that, you know, is also illusory. You know, it's here today, it's gone tomorrow. You deep within, you have a connection with God that transcends everything. Kaustubha, right now, you know, leave this podcast.
He's talking
You know,
himself out of everything.
yeah. Leave this podcast, walk out the door. Don't worry about anything, knowing that God will protect you. I could try to do that, but how far would I get? You know, before my mind starts to get really disturbed, and I'm not making that kind of steady progress that I could do. You know, now you spoke about a calling, and you identified certain historical figures in Bhakti tradition who had that calling and just left. And one point that I want to make is it's not necessarily that their calling was louder. You know, like was Dhritarashtra in the stage? Was his connection louder than Yudhishthir's? You know, but in his life at that time, instructed by someone that had a really good understanding of this, he took that step. He made that shift. He made that external shift. And that external shift may or may not be right. And you know, fact is in this Kali Yuga that we live in these difficult circumstances that we live in, you know, our renunciation is probably going to look different than this. You know, of all the people that you and I know who practice bhakti, and we've been in this for, 70 years between the two of us or something like that. And we've been to India, so many times and spent so much time there. And, how many people do we know that actually live this life at all?
And truthfully, in retrospect to my own life,
Yeah.
like as a witness of people who've gone through this, anyone who's really done it out of that loud calling, for the most part, I felt like it was a little premature.
Yeah.
I felt like they were fooling themselves that they have a stronger bond to God than they actually did. And it was usually trying to escape, because let's face it, responsibility is difficult. It's difficult to be responsible in this material world. And it demands that you show up, and some of it is tedious stuff just to get by, just tedious stuff to exist. And to give that up, and it seems so mundane, especially like if you came from a monk where everything you're doing is spiritual, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to go into a spiritual family. And you realize once you get in a family, there's a lot of material things you have to deal with on a regular basis. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of, and so you think, wait a second, what am I doing with my life? Every time I feel a little in that sick of it all, I realize there's a cop-out actually. And I think
false renunciation.
It's a false renunciation. And I see that actually Krishna wants me to just deal with these things and be steady and be in there and to do it in with a yogic state of mind.
And that means you're renouncing your own selfish motive to escape. It's an internal renunciation, and you're surrendering, to God and to the circumstances that exist. So that's genuine. And therefore, if you go to the 6th chapter of the Gita, let me pull up 6th chapter of the Gita, because this was, this is kind of where Arjuna was at, that he was thinking, I just want to walk away from my responsibilities. Isn't that the spiritual thing to do?
Right.
And for 4 or 5 chapters, Krishna's trying to get Arjuna to understand that it's not the external renunciation that's important, it's the internal renunciation. And you can do the external work with the internal renunciation. That's called karma yoga or bhakti yoga. So Arjuna, he's struggling with trying to get that idea, isn't spirituality letting it all go and leaving?
Right.
And so then he says this verse, 6:1, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated. That's just exactly what you were talking about, right? In my family life, I have these obligations, but I'm unattached to the fruits of my work. I'm not doing it to derive some kind of disconnected pleasure that's disconnected from my relationship with God, thinking that this is my family, this is, I'm the enjoyer. So one who is unattached to the fruits of their work, and who yet works as they're obligated, that person, and the word that he uses to describe that person? He says that person is a sannyasi. Right. You're muted, Raghu.
That's the real sannyasi.
That's real sannyas, right? Real, like, I'm giving up all my selfish motives. I'm giving up all my selfish, and I'm ready to accept what comes. So he says that person is the real sannyasi. He is in the renounced order of life. And he says, and that person is a true mystic.
A lot of great people chiming in on this board. First, Josh McCarthy says, the deeper you get with your bond with Krishna, you're unable to perform these fruitless actions. And the only thing you can think about is serving. It is the only thing on your mind. And you find anything else in life just doesn't make you happy anymore. That's sort of like that is the romance when you start to fall in love with Krishna. And that's the power. All of a sudden, nothing seems to make sense in this material world anymore. And that's true. And that'll always stay there. And then you get to this point where you're like, but wait a second, I'm a dad. And this is what Kamaniya brought up, this point. We're like, how many people did this when they have children? A lot of people, there's a romance of having a family. And then when you have the kids, it's a tough job to have kids. It is like an exhausting job. It is, woo, 24/7, around the clock, never ends, and and you can use your spiritual philosophy to sort of extricate yourself out of actual spiritual growth, responsibility and dharma itself. And I've seen it again and again, and it's not pretty. In the name of I'm being more spiritual.
Right. And we may not even be talking about exactly, well, in other words, wandering off to a forest, right? It may mean just getting a divorce. It may mean, moving into an ashram, or that renunciation may manifest in different ways that might ultimately be a cop-out, when really what you're meant to be doing is owning those responsibilities as a servant of God, right? As a servant of God. And the point that Krishna's making is, he's saying, in a sense, it's so satisfying to me to think that here's Krishna, and what he's saying is, I'm not, because you can read different religious texts out there, and you get this picture of God, the jealous God, or the God that's caught up in the details, right? I'm very concerned about the detail, follow the detail exactly. Here it's Krishna saying, I'm not caught up in externals, and I'm not caught up in superficialities. What I'm concerned about for you, Arjuna, is that you actually come to the true level of spirituality. And that can play out by being active in society, or by leaving society behind. But I want you to understand that for most people, if we look at their psychology, Arjuna, you're a warrior. Arjuna, your family was wronged by the people on the other side of that battlefield, and they've done horrible things and taken over the government, and you have a duty to protect people. Now I'm saying, and Krishna will even say like this, that my opinion, right, is that you should step up in a selfless way, and perform your duties with detachment, rather than walk away and go into the force as if you're a totally detached person. Because when you sit down to meditate, where's your mind going to be? Right? It's going to be right back here on this battlefield.
You can't escape the mind.
Can't escape it. So he says that person is a pretender in the 3rd chapter, right?
Marriage, family life, career, they're beautiful containers to work through your issues.
Right.
So
I've heard sometimes the example of, can't remember the last time I ever saw one of these. I don't even know if you could get one of these things, but when we were kids, sometimes they'd have this thing where it's like this little electric spinner thing that you put rocks inside and you spin them around.
A rock polisher.
Is that what it's called?
Always wanted one.
Could never, this seems like the kind of thing you would
never
get into
afford one. Could never afford one.
And it would spin the rocks around.
How much I've asked my mom for? I can't believe you brought that up. That's gonna
Really?
that hurts right now. I always wanted a rock polisher.
You were a real Boy Scout, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
And so that it would spin the rocks around and the rocks would come out like all smooth and shiny, right? So if you take the rock and you put it on its own, it's never going to become like that. But it's through its connection with, through the sometimes rough, association with others, that it becomes smooth and polished. And so it is a fact that most of us probably won't do so good in isolation, but it is through our relationship with others, in our family, in our workplaces, and so on, that we have that opportunity to become polished if we apply the same wisdom in the world.
Your analogy went right out the window. All I'm thinking of is the things I didn't get when I was a child because we had no money.
I mean, those weren't too expensive, were they? How much could that thing have cost?
I think they were. They were one of those arty toys. It was just like out of my parents' budget.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, my wife said she's going to get me one for Father's Day. Thank you.
There you go. Do they still exist? I mean, can you get?
They exist. I've seen them. I walk by them on the street sometime, look in the window like, should I just get it?
You've never seen one in a window?
Yes. There's stores that sell those things, man.
Not in the window.
Sometimes they
you're embellishing.
Sometimes they feature them.
You're embellishing.
High on the shelf. All right, let's keep going, man. This is the Bhagavatam. Woo! Monday.
So he's going to go.
He's going to go. Thus, text 30. The gentle chase Kandari. That's the wife. Now, the wife of the blind king. She's so wonderful, actually.
She was good throughout, right?
She was good throughout. Who was the daughter of King Subal of Kandahar or Gandhar. So that's I think Afghanistan.
Kandahar is the
Kandahar,
right? So that's what the connection is there. Yeah.
She followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalayan mountains. So she's like, "Okay, it's time. I'm going with you." Which are the Himalayas, which are the delights of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy. That's like, okay, this is where we're going. The Himalayas. Head north, young man.
I could see you leading the pilgrimage up there, Raghunath.
I could say, come on, Bridget, it's time. The kids are grown up. It's time. Just walk. Oh, shoot. Would you bring anything, Bridget? Would you bring clothes? Wardrobes? Pedicure things?
Rock polish.
Clogs. You can't go on pilgrimage in clogs. Okay. Okay. Mars Yudhisthira. Now here's Yudhisthira. He's the generation down.
Yeah.
Full of anxiety, turned to Sanjay, who was sitting there, and said, "Oh, Sanjay." So he just woke up. It's morning time. "Where is our uncle, who is old and blind? Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura, and Mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her son's demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offense?"
Yes.
You did some skipping, Raghu.
Let's skip.
31.
Oh, man. I don't want to do that. Mars Yudhisthira, whose enemy was never born.
Again, he's called that, right? Ajatasatru. He's always referred to that way.
Ajata Shatru. Good trivia question for the trivia, not so trivia Tuesday, which we've never had yet.
Together.
Ajata Shatru means one who has no enemy. Performed his daily morning duties by praying. Can you see Maharaj Yudhisthira praying, like kneeling?
Beautiful sight, huh?
Offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering obeisances and grains to the cows, land and gold to the Brahmins. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncles or aunt, the daughter of King Subal. Maharaj Yudhisthira, full of anxiety, so he's coming in. He did his morning prayers, his morning rituals. He turned to Sanjaya. Now, Sanjaya also, he was a dedicated servant, friend, like a son, basically, to, Dhritarashtra.
He was a counselor.
He was the counselor to Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Yudhisthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjay, who was sitting there.
Purport.
Want to read the purport?
Yeah, let's read some of this purport. It's good stuff here.
All right, start, please. You can start it.
Maharaj Yudhisthira was the most pious king. Why? Because he personally practiced daily the pious duties for the householders. So Prabhupada reads this purport and it says that Maharaj Yudhisthira, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying. It's kind of like, that's kind of not even the subject of the verse. The verse is really about, that he couldn't find his uncle, because usually his uncle would be around, right?
Yeah.
So he woke up in the morning and he did these duties.
Hey, where's the uncle? Where's my uncle?
Yeah. First it mentioned he's praying, and then he's offering fire sacrifice to the sun god. So he's not a person that just the sun comes up and I ignore it. I'm not feeling any gratitude for the sun. So every day he does a ritual to offer his respect to the sun, offering obeisances maybe to all the people in his life that he's grateful to, and so on. He's consciously, taking his heart and offering obeisances. And he's offering grains and cows and land You know, he has every day, I'm going to give, I'm going to give, I'm going to give. You know, he offers gold to the brahmanas. Here's some wealth. I know you people are so trustworthy that you'll do the best with this. Take this, you know, and help people with it. And then he enters the palace. And now what I always do after I do that, I always go in and I offer my respects to my uncle and to my aunt. Right. This is what I do daily. And then it mentions, you know, the crucial part that he's not there, he's gone. But Prabhupada he's going to key in on it. Look how this person wakes up and spends his early hours every day. So he says, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the most pious king because he personally practiced daily the pious duties for the householders. The householders are required to rise early in the morning, and after bathing, they should offer respect to the deities at home by prayers, by offering fuel in the sacred fire, by giving the brahmanas in charity land, cows, grain, gold, etc. And at last, by offering to the elderly members due respects and obeisances. One who is not prepared to practice injunctions prescribed in the Shastras cannot be a good man simply by book knowledge, right? You gotta work it, right? What did we come up with? Did we use an AA thing?
Yeah, it works if you work it.
It works if you work it. So it's not that we just read these books and talk about them, but I got to wake up early. Kudos to all the people that tune in here for Wisdom of the Sages every morning. They wake up. It's become a morning ritual, right? I need a good morning ritual. Morning is such an important time of the day. It's a time that's in the mode of goodness. So the influence of it is very positive for deepening one's spiritual life. So Yudhishthira was doing this. And then Prabhupada gets a little heavy here. Modern householders are practiced to a different mode of life, different modes of life, namely to rise late.
Yeah.
And then you know what they do? This is really
Then they
low
listen
class.
to the podcast late in the day. The others.
No, we love the others. We love
the others. Just kidding.
So, and then he says, then Prabhupada keys in on some real low class behavior here. Namely, they rise late and then they take bed tea.
Bed tea? Oh, how dare them.
How uncouth.
Bed tea.
They take bed tea without any sort of cleanliness and without any purificatory practices as mentioned above.
I've taken bed tea.
Have you taken
sort
some
of
bed tea?
Sitting in bed, drinking a cup of tea.
Haven't taken a bath.
Haven't taken a bath.
Haven't shown respects. Haven't
brushed my teeth.
Oh.
Haven't given gold in charity.
Yeah.
I don't have any gold.
You're lying around bed drinking your tea.
You're giving my gold tooth here. Anybody want this?
So Prabhupada says that the household children are taken to practice what the parents practice, and therefore the whole generation glides towards hell.
It's a slippery slope.
Right. Now he says nothing good can be expected from them unless they associate with sadhus. Yeah. Like Dhritarashtra, the materialistic person may take lessons from a sadhu like Vidura and thus be cleansed of the effects of modern life. Right? We need a good morning program.
You know, that's what I take away from this verse. It's not like I'm expecting, someone just tuned into the show and they're like, yeah, I should start, doing a fire ceremony to the sun god every morning.
Right.
The idea is that there's a morning rituals that sort of recalibrate our brain, that, like we say, the hearing of truth on a regular basis. Sometimes it's a rising early before all the distortion of the day happens. There's a lot of static in the course of the day. Rising early, morning meditation, morning readings like we're doing now. And that sort of like recalibrates us to let us go out and face the day. Maybe making a list like we did on that Makeover Monday, writing down specifically what I'm going to add to my life, who I'm going to become this week, what I'm going to let go this week, how I did last week, and how I want to move forward. Maybe even the day before or the night before. This is where I'm going into this week.
Yeah, like you go to bed. I mean, the wisdom of sages for the people that are here in the morning. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to get up and I have this to look forward to. And if we don't, what are we going to do in the morning? Are we going to lie around bed, more than we need to? And just miss the opportunity day after day after day.
Like, notice what app you put on first thing in the morning. Okay. I've got that new app on my phone. What is it called again? BVT or something? Bhaktivedanta Trust. I can't remember it.
I thought you were gonna say
BVL.
BVL. This
Bhaktivedanta
thing has like
Library.
every Bhaktivedanta. It's
I thought you were
great.
going to say TikTok.
I put it on as soon as I wake up. TikTok, TikTok. No, I don't even know what TikTok is. Truthfully, I heard about it. I heard it. I can't tell.
People dance on it a lot. That's all I
Okay,
know.
it's a lot of dancing.
Well,
Dancing's
it seems to
good,
be a
isn't
lot
it?
of dancing going on.
Anyway, if you can wake up and immediately just play something, sometimes I'll do Nishringa Kavacha, sometimes I'll do Vishnu Sahasranam, sometimes some bhajan, sometimes some lecture. It's great. So anyway, that's a good plan.
You need a good morning
Otherwise, what
program.
happens, you go right to the news in your brain. It's just like fogs up your brain. I try to keep the morning sacred.
Get up as early as you can.
Yeah.
Go to bed early. Get up early. Know what you're going to do already, right? You know what? Tomorrow morning when I wake up, this is what I'm going to read. I'm anticipating it already, right?
Yes. Oh, man.
Okay. We got a few minutes left. We got 2 minutes left.
You want to read that last one while I cue up the song?
Okay. Text 32. Maharaj Yudhishthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "Oh, Sanjaya, where is our uncle who is old and blind?" Right? He knew, because he'd seen Vidur's instructions. So he probably knew that this was coming, that this was a possibility. And this is something I suppose we'll have to talk about tomorrow, that although Yudhishthira was so mistreated for so many years by his uncle, he just possessed no hostility or animosity. And he genuinely, from his heart, he was like, "Oh no, where's my uncle gone?" You know, he was feeling for him. You there, Raghu?
Yeah. What's going to happen?
We will find out tomorrow.
Okay. It's like a
Spiritual
cliffhanger.
Spiritual cliffhanger.
Woo! That's it. That's our Srimad Bhagavatam for this morning. Good job, everybody. Look, everybody just starts clapping and dancing. Isn't that beautiful? Hey, everybody listening on Zoom, I'm sick of seeing your name in your frozen photo. I want to see your real being here on Zoom.
And Papa Tony.
And Papa Tony. There he is. And I want everybody to remember, we're listening on Zoom, chant one round of japa a day. See if it happens. Make your makeover Monday. Have a great makeover Monday, a moon day, so to speak. You want to come in here and dance too? Come on, young lady. Thanks for everybody listening on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you write us a little message. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star. Everybody can do that. Everybody can dance around like Just a Ruckus. Thanks for everybody from Zoom who joined us late that I didn't get to say good morning to. I'm excited for Bobby Marchand's yoga class, 10 a.m. And
Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow on Tuesday. The Patreon. Thanks for everybody supporting us on Patreon. We appreciate it. This boat is floating by your kindness, and it's become a real full-time job that we love. Thank you so much. Patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages, and we're excited for Parmananda's class and Kumi at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Kaustubha will post all those classes today.
Any Sweet Baby Krishna coming up?
Sweet Baby, well, you know what? This week's very packed, so we're going to wait till next week.
All right.